Thank you, Amanda and Danielle and the whole Downtown Project community. And it's an honor to be here with you. Drove about 5 hours to get here, so it's special to be here. I want to share with you tonight a couple of stories and also some lessons I've learned through the course of these journeys that I've been on. And start really first with music, just so I get a sense of who's in the room. Who here is a Michael Jackson fan? All right, good. So one of my very first memories actually was Christmas. And I remember getting this like little package, and I guess I'm dating myself for some of the younger people in the room, but I got this little package and I remember opening it up, and I opened up this package and I looked at this picture and it was Michael Jackson. I got my first Michael Jackson Thriller cassette. And it was epic. And on top of that, I got to have what was my very first concert experience, which was to go see Michael Jackson live. And it was my first live musical experience. And I remember Michael Jackson not only singing all of my favorite songs, but he stood there and he went to this rock. And he goes to this rock and he stands there and he grabs this sword. Like it's like the biggest obstacle he's ever seen. And in the midst of it, he pulls it up and lasers fly everywhere. And I'm like an 8-year-old kid and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So long story short, music has really defined many of the memories that I've had throughout my life. I remember driving with my dad in his old brown Cadillac, listening to Neil Diamond 8-tracks as we bounced through Chicago. I remember all the girls in high school loving when John Cusack held up his boombox and Say Anything and making mixtapes for girls, and then when we broke up, promptly burning those mixtapes. I remember this soundtrack of my life, and so for me, music has always been a passion. And I had a pretty profound experience in college where I was surrounded by so many people who were on medication for things, for ADD or OCD or some DD that some doctor had said they needed to take a bunch of medicine for. And I remember being sort of struck by this fact of what is it in our society, in Western society, that has us need to be on all these medications? And so it just started a question in my head. And to make a long story short, I wound up going to Sri Lanka, which is a country I actually knew nothing about. I was studying with a professor. I really admired him. I was trying to go to Bali and surf and carve masks, and he was like, what about Sri Lanka? And I was like, I've never even heard of Sri Lanka. I don't even know where it is. And he's like, well, will you trust me? And I said, yeah, I'll trust you. So he said, all right, bang. So I signed up to spend a year of my life in Sri Lanka, just because it was on the exact opposite side of the world from where I grew up in Chicago, and I think it's always good to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. So I wound up in Sri Lanka, and I encountered something there that I had never really experienced. I encountered a place where people actually did not have a word for privacy. They did not have a word for possession. If I were to say, Danielle, can you give me that microphone? It would be microphone dene kak puluanda, which is there unto you a microphone? So I thought about that. I thought about the fact that like where I grew up, it was all I have, right? It's ego-oriented. And then I went around the world, and the entire community basically defined itself in relationship to its community. And the way that they built that community and the way they maintained that community was through ritual and through music. And I experienced an experience I'll never forget, which is there's something called the Saniyakuma, which is actually a ritual that goes on when someone falls out of balance with the community or when they have a dis-ease. The way that they're brought back into balance is the entire community shows them that they're seen and valued. They spend 2 weeks praying to the trees to ask permission to carve the wood, to make the masks, to do the dance. With prom fraud cities, they spend 2 weeks creating, and they create this elaborate staging, and they put that person right in the middle. And from sunset to sunrise, they dance. And they dance around that person, and they bring them back into balance with the community. And that experience fundamentally changed my worldview, because at the same time, I also experienced, traveling through India and Nepal and Indonesia and Thailand, extreme poverty. So I saw mothers holding their children without any means to feed them. I saw for the first time true desperation, and I saw it on every corner. And I remember being at a train station in India. I was foolish enough to take a third-class train in India for 3 days all the way up to the Nepal border. And I remember meeting these two boys at this train station, and they were the cutest little boys. They actually were super jovial. And they asked me to buy them some food, and I said, well, of course. And I sat with them, and then I asked, where are you guys going? And they said, well, nowhere. We were just staying here. And I realized that they had absolutely nowhere to go. And so I thought, on one level, I had this profound experience of helping to feed and be with these boys, but on the other level, I actually did very little to help their consequence and their circumstance. So fast forward to returning to the United States, I was exposed to this extraordinary sense of community, but also this juxtaposition, which was extreme poverty. And I met a gentleman by the name of Hugh, and he said, I want to end extreme poverty. And I said, I love that vision. And I said, in what country? And he said, no, I want to end extreme poverty all around the world. And I thought, now that's a vision I could get into. And for those who don't know, at that time, this was a few years ago, there were 1.4 billion people around the world living on $1.25 or its equivalent a day. The good news is that that's now down to 1.2 billion, so that 200 million people, in other words, have moved out of extreme poverty. And what many people don't know is in my lifetime, in many of our lifetime, actually extreme poverty has been halved. So in the last 30 years, we've halved extreme poverty, and we believe it can be the legacy of our generation to see that it's wiped off entirely. Yeah. And many of the people in this room have actually supported us in that vision. So to cut to the chase, music, sort of a sense of dis-ease that I saw throughout our society based on ego, based on a sense of detachment, a lack of community. And then an experience of seeing a place where there was an extreme lack of material wealth, yet there was an extraordinary rich tradition of bringing people together and building community. And so when Hugh asked me, I'd love for you to take on running the U.S. for the Global Poverty Project, he said, what are you going to do to put extreme poverty on the map in the United States of America? And at that time, we went to a barn for 4 days, and we were all going off salary. We didn't have any money. There were 4 of us, and we spent 4 days. And I said, there's really 2 things I could think of that we could do. One is we could create a film, but it would have to be like a blockbuster and go around the world. Or we could throw a music festival. Because I think the story around poverty is broken, right? The Sally Struthers, poor child, flies, distended belly, make you feel guilty, give me 25 cents. I actually like to call it poverty porn. It's totally unhealthy, and it does nothing to empower. So I said, let's tell a story in a totally different way, right? Let's create an environment, but let's do it in a way that really hasn't been done before, and let's tell that story through the course of the music. Because music across the world, no matter who you are, where you are, brings people together. Everyone resonates with music. It transcends language barriers, right? So we got together. We declared this absolutely insane big vision because we had nothing to lose really except failure, and the stakes were high because it's such a critical issue. And so we said, all right, let's declare a festival. Let's do it in 9 months, in September, on the Great Lawn in Central Park. Now the beauty of the Great Lawn in Central Park is Beatles never performed there, Rolling Stones never performed there. The last concert on a Saturday was Simon & Garfunkel in 1981, which also happened to be my favorite CD when I was in high school. So it was quite a special idea. But the problem with Central Park is, and the reason why there's so few concerts there, is you can't actually sell tickets, right? So, and it costs quite a significant amount of money just to touch the grass because you have to pay the conservancy. So we said, okay, well, we want to get Central Park because we want to attract the biggest artists so we can have the widest reach to put extreme poverty on the map in the US, but we don't have any money, and we have this big vision. So how are we going to do this? So the long and short of it is, and this is the very short version, is we went off. We were crazy. We were like, you know what? Basically, we need to have an early win. Everyone likes to be on a winning team. So let's talk to the Gates Foundation. Let's do a concert around an issue that is totally unsexy, which is polio, but yet it's something that we can win in the next 5 years. We can eradicate a disease from the planet. So we went off and we did a polio campaign and went to this place where, forgive me if you live in Perth, Australia, not that many people go to. We went all the way around the world to Perth. We threw a concert with John Legend. We convinced him to come with us. We threw a concert, got 5 heads of state to declare $118 million for polio vaccines. So that was the early win. We got the Gates. They were happy with us. We threw a great small concert, proved that we could do it. And off the back of that, I went with a gentleman named Ryan and sat down with Bill Fold, who co-founded Coachella. And Bill, I don't know if you know Bill, he's actually the world's sweetest guy, but if you sit down with him, he's got tats all the way up his neck, wrap-around sunglasses, and he grew up throwing punk shows. So the idea of pitching him on a concert to end extreme poverty didn't seem like the best winning idea, but he actually listened to us for an hour. And I remember calling him from the Chinatown bus. Hugh and I were on our way back from speaking up at Harvard. Called him on the Chinatown bus, the $8 bus that we could afford, and I said, Bill, would you be willing to back us? And he said, yeah, I'll turn it into my pet project. So all of a sudden, we had the Gates Foundation, we had AEG, and we had the legitimacy. Now what we needed was an artist. So it took us about 6 months, and we finally got a gentleman who is the manager for the Foo Fighters to say, you know what, we'll give you the Foo Fighters, but you have to get another marquee artist, which was no easy feat. So we went to the Black Keys, because we love the Black Keys, and we said, we'd love for you to perform. We think we can get the Great Lawn. We've got the Foo Fighters. If we can get you, will you do it? And they said, love to do it. We have a K-Rock interview. We're in LA. We can't do it. So we said, okay. And we went back and we thought about it. We said, well, what could we do to actually turn that no into a yes? So we went back to K-Rock. We said, K-Rock, could you move their promotion by 1 day? They said, feasibly, yes, we can move by 1 day. We then went to FedEx and we said, FedEx, we have this situation. We want to throw this concert to end extreme poverty in New York. The Black Keys are in LA. We need to get them overnight to New York and then ship all their equipment overnight to LA. Will you back us? They said yes. So all of a sudden we had the Black Keys, we had the Foo Fighters, and off the back of that, a wonderful woman by the name of Marsha Vlasic sat down at Barney's with another wonderful woman named Michelle Anthony, and they got Neil Young to join us. So all of a sudden we had Neil Young, we had the Black Keys, we had the Foo Fighters, we had a concert. Perhaps more importantly, and I think the real win, because we weren't really in the concert business, we were in the ending extreme poverty business, was we created a radical disruption, right? We took the no, the obstacle, which was you can't sell tickets on the Great Lawn, and we said, you know what? Let's make this our great advantage. Let's create a mobile app and a website called Global Citizen. And the way that you get your ticket to the festival is through your action around issues affecting the extreme poor. So if you share a piece of content, you get a point. If you sign a petition for the Gates Foundation around polio, you get a point. If you volunteer, you get a point. You get a certain number of points, you enter into a lottery, and that lottery is the way that you earn your ticket to the Great Lawn, which also means that everyone that's there has done something to be there. So long story short, we also partner with 10 of the best nonprofits across, from UNICEF to other wonderful organizations, Pencils of Promise, Charity Water, and all of them made declarative commitments. So we brought together these 10 organizations, and they declared about $1.3 billion in new commitments on behalf of programs serving the world's poor. So it wound up being a really profound success, and it's now grown. We have, last year we had Alicia Keys, Stevie Wonder, Kings of Leon, John Mayer, and we're able to hone in and focus, really focusing on issues like sanitation, on education, on the empowerment of women. And I'd like to actually play, if we can now, Colton, could you cue that first video? I'm going to show you basically how we decided to tell the story, which is we reframed it around the issues in a way that I think you probably have not seen before. So take a look.
We are more the same than we are different. We enter our world the same way. And and take our first steps on the same soil. All 7 billion of us. We bleed the same color and have the same need to bond and belong. We form tribes, families, communities, clubs, cities, states. Countries draw their lines. Citizens pledge their allegiances. And yet our definition of belonging isn't working. Wars are fought, disease spreads, the environment is destroyed, and poverty increases. We need global citizens. People who apply the idea of citizenship to a global level. Global citizens who recognize we rise and fall together. Who see strength in diversity and want to create a new future together. In the last 35 years, extreme poverty has been cut in half. We are on the threshold of ending extreme poverty in our lifetime. We can build the world we want. As global citizens, let this be our legacy. Welcome, citizens, to the Global Citizen Festival.
So this was the introductory video. We did 10. We actually flew all around the world. We wanted to be seen as a global issue. We really wanted to establish the audience in the same frame that we established those affected by the issue, because extreme poverty does not need to exist, right? If we actually saw our shared humanity and acted, we could end extreme poverty within the context of a few years. But it's about us rising up and coming together. And really it's about, I think, changing the story, reframing the story in a way that inspires, reframing the story in a way that empowers, and creating a context in which people feel they have agency, right? So much of the paradigm of charity is about, okay, I'll give you a handout to assuage my guilt, but does that actually fundamentally shift the system? And so what we're about is fundamentally shifting the system through hope and inspiration. So I'll leave you with a few lessons that I've been reflecting on, because even as I've learned them and share them, I continue to need to learn them again, which is dream big. Big vision attracts wonderful people. People like Amanda and others, a small group of us. There was probably 20 of us, really, that just made this absolutely insane thing happen. And 99 times out of 100, it probably would have failed. But that one time, and our indomitable will, it succeeded. Embrace failure. Thomas Jefferson created 9,999 failures before he created the light bulb. So we got to keep in mind, we're all human. We need to iterate. Success is iterative. It's not a destination. I could sit here and say, oh yeah, check this out, this awesome festival we did. It's like we failed a lot in that process. So dream big, embrace failure. And then I think, as Preston said, keep reaching for the skinny branch. So we're going to have our third festival coming up this September. We have Jay-Z, we have Carrie Underwood, we have No Doubt, Tiesto, Fun, a few special guests. I encourage you all to go on globalcitizenfestival.org, earn some points, take action, hopefully join us. But I also encourage you to live your vision, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be, obviously, a big festival. Whatever your vision is, live it and live it now, live it today, and surround yourself with good people. They say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and I'm working on hanging out with a better and better 5 people. Or in other words, I'm actually working on being better and better myself so that the 5 people around me rise up with me. And so really at the end of the day, that's it. I'm gonna keep stepping up and working to create new things, new possibilities, and I'm inspired by all of you. I'd love to create with you, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me.